Okay, we'll begin now. So we started working on the measure of variation. We already completed range and we did the standard deviation. If I remember correctly, we did one example on the standard deviation, right? So let's continue. We did this example, population standard deviation of the ungrouped data. Now here is our second example. Here we have to find the population standard deviation, variance, and coefficient of variance for the following data. And you can see that this data here is a group data, right? So the data here is a group data, and we are asked to find the standard deviation. So if you remember the formula from last class, to find the population standard deviation, right? To find the population standard deviation, we have a specific formula. That was, let me write here, population standard deviation denoted by sigma, right? And this is for the grouped distribution, that is with the frequency. Our formula was, this is equal to the sum of frequency multiplied to x minus mean squared divided by n. That is the formula. And we have to find the population standard deviation using this formula. You can see we have the x values given. We have the frequencies given. We don't have mean. So we have to first find the mean, and then we'll be able to calculate the standard deviation. So what we'll do first is we're going to create a table, just like the way we did last time. So let's first create a table to enter these data values. Okay. Something like that. Let's write all those x values, the data values. You can see that the data values are 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. These are your x values or data values. I'll also draw a line down here so that I can put my total below that. They have also given frequency. So in next column, I'm going to put the frequencies. Frequencies are 4, 2, 3, 2, and 5. And if you add all of them, you'll get the size of the population, which is n equal to 16. Now, please look at the screen. You can see that this is our formula to find the mean. To find the population standard deviation. But what we need here is the mean. So that means first we need to find the mean, okay? And formula to find the population mean, if you remember, is mean is equal to sum of f times x divided by n. That is the formula to find the mean, right? So we have the frequency, we have the x, but we don't have f times x. So what we're going to do is we're going to make one column here and we find f times x. So here we find f multiplied to x. And let's see what are those values. So for the first one, we have 2 times 4, that's a 8. Next, we have 4 times 2, that's also 8. Then we have 6 times 3, 18. Next, we have 8 times 2, that's a 16. And then finally, here we have 10 times 5, that's a 50. But to find the mean, if you go back to this formula and look at it, mean is sum of f times x. Sum means we have to add these numbers. So if you add all those numbers, you get 100. You can use your calculator to add it and verify that it is actually 100. So your mean will be equal to, you can see that sum of f times x, we got 100 and n is 16. So that's going to be 100 divided by 16 or 6.25. So the mean is 6.25. Okay, we have not even started the process for standard deviation. Now in next column, we are going to do that. Okay, so to find the standard deviation, we need this one. Look at this. We need f multiplied to x minus mean is squared, and we have to find the sum of that. Okay, so here we do f times x minus mean is 6.25 squared. So for example, in this first line, look at the screen carefully now, everybody. Students here in the class and also in the virtual classroom. So we start with the frequency. Frequency is 4. 4 times x. X is 2. 2 minus 6.25. And then you have to square. Right? And basically, you can type this in your calculator just like that. 4, then parenthesis begin. 2 minus 6.25, close the parenthesis, square it and check. You should get 72.25. Similarly, for the next row here, frequency is 2, x value is 4, and then minus 6.25, quantity squared. If you simplify that, you get 10.125. Now we go to the third row here. You can see that the value of frequency is 3. X value is 6 minus 6.25 quantity squared. You should get 0.1875. Make sure each one of you type it and check it and verify that these numbers are correct. Okay, in the next row, you can see frequency is 2, x value is 8, so 2 times 8 minus 6.25 quantity squared. And if you simplify that, you get 6.125. And finally, we go to the last one. You can see frequency is 5, x value is 10, minus 6.25 squared. I think you'll get 70.313. Make sure you check it. Okay. So we have almost everything ready. Now what you have to do is, see, once we find f times x minus mean squared, here is a summation. Meaning of that is you have to add all these numbers. Could you please quickly add these numbers in your calculator and find out what you get? Everybody, please do that. Students joining from home, you can add those numbers and you can type it in the chat if you want. Anybody here? What do you get? $159, we can say that, right? Okay, $159. Great. So once we have all these things ready, now we can start working on this one, the calculation of the population standard deviation. Now, the population standard deviation, sigma is the square root of, let me write here, population standard deviation. Population standard deviation, sigma is the square root of, look here, it is equal to the square root of this value, square root of sum of f times x minus mean squared, that's 159. And you have to divide that by n, n is 16. So it is 159 over 16. And you can type that in your calculator to see what you will get. I got 3.1524. That is the population standard deviation for the data given here. Let me know if you have any questions so far. Okay, once we get the population standard deviation, second thing we want is the variance, as you can see here. And you know from your previous class, variance is the square of the standard deviation. So variance is sigma squared. Look at the screen here. Sigma, or the population standard deviation, is equal to square root of 159 over 16. When you square it, the square root will go away. It will just be 159 over 16. And 159 over 16, you can type that in your calculator to get the decimal value. You should get, make sure you check it, you should get 9.9376. 159 divided by 16. That is the variance, right? And the last thing we want is the coefficient of variance. So we write CVAR. And if you remember, the formula is standard deviation divided by mean multiplied to 100%. These are all the formulas that you have seen in our previous class. Now, all we need to do here is plug in the value and simplify. Standard deviation is this one, which is 3.1524 divided by mean. Mean is up here, 6.25. Multiplied with 100 to get the percentage value. And if you type in your calculator, you should get 50.4384%. That is the coefficient of variance. That is the scatteredness coefficient, you can say. So probably you have noticed the process of finding the standard deviation is not different from what we did in our last class. In previous class, we learned how to find the population standard deviation for ungrouped data. This is just the group data. The only difference is in this formula, you have this F, right? If